everybody, to the Lords of the Screen podcast. We're a film and entertainment podcast, and today we're putting on our sneakers and we're going to the Space Jam. It's your chance, do your dance. Kevin Rice, how you doing?
Get up and slam, Kev. Welcome to the jam.
You know, did they even use the song in the new movie?
They did not. One of the many things about this new movie that we will get into, I'm sure. But no, they did not use the song.
How do you not
Or if they did,
song?
I didn't notice it. Maybe it was over the credits. I don't know. I noped out as soon as I could when the movie was over. So maybe it was over the credits. I'm not sure.
Welcome back, everybody. Hey, Kevin Folks here as well. We're taking a look at Space Jam: A New Legacy. And we're also going to look a little bit at Space Jam 1. So let's just jump right into things here today. I'll say that our other co-host, Nick Birch, he's visiting some family, so he couldn't be with us here. But we have a delightful segment for you. This is what Nick thought of the movie.
Alright, so sat down and I watched the Space Jam sequel starring LeBron James. I've been a big fan of the original movie for a long time, ever since I was a little kid. I mean, you got Looney Tunes, you got Michael Jordan getting into shenanigans, playing basketball. What's not to like? Soundtrack is really fun. Love all that stuff. So, my big gripes, I would say, with the new film is just that I feel like I was trapped in a YouTube ad I just couldn't skip. Like, it was just this never-ending advertisement of Warner Brothers properties. And I think that would be fine. Some of the references, like the jokes, were actually like pretty funny for me. Like, I enjoyed the Granny in the Matrix and Coyote and Mad Max, but a lot of the other stuff was so just like the reference itself, I guess, was the joke, and that wasn't really a thing that I was super into. I think overall, like, the Looney Tunes, I think, could have had more chances to be loony, but I guess that was part of the lesson of the movie. But I definitely would have liked a more prominent feature of what they were doing other than just Bugs, because I feel like Bugs kind of got it all. And LeBron was perfectly serviceable in doing what he was asked to do, and it was fine. But I think at the end of the day, the big thing is it doesn't really matter what us three grown men think about this movie. This is a movie for kids. It's a movie for families. So as long as the kids are having fun and they're enjoying themselves, I guess the movie is a success no matter what. No matter what we have to say about it, if we're just gonna sit around and poo-poo on it being an ad. And my number one disappointment is that we didn't get the original theme song. I wanted to come on and slam and be welcome to the jam. And for the rest of my days, I'm going to be upset that wasn't included in, at least, even if it would have been some kind of cool 2020s remix version. We didn't even get that. And that was the greatest crime that this movie had.
Thanks,
Nick. Nick, that is an excellent take, Nick. I agree with everything that you just said. Anyway, Nick did take the time to watch the movie, so we figured we'd throw in his 2 cents. I honestly, at the time of recording, I have no idea what he said, so he probably trashed my opinion of the film, but we'll see.
Probably.
Anyway, Kevin, we have not seen Space Jam 1 in a very long time.
Probably since 1996. When it came out. I remember, when it came out, not really liking it. I wasn't into basketball. I'm still not, but I wasn't into sports at the time. I had everybody knew who Michael Jordan was, or is, I guess. But, I was not one of those who worshipped at the altar. I didn't have a Chicago Bulls jersey or any of that stuff. So to me, it was really more of a Looney Tunes movie, and kind of a letdown as a Looney Tunes movie as well back then. So what were your thoughts? Do you remember back then? What you thought about the movie?
Yeah, back then it was huge because I was, a kid. I don't remember what grade I was in, but I was little. I don't know, one of the elementary school or something like that. And they would constantly play the Space Jam theme song in the gym. I guess that was our exercise. We just danced Space Jam. Mm-hmm. But it was a lot because I watched Cartoon Network early in the morning before school, and they would show a lot of Looney Tunes and stuff, and and just, of course, as a child looking back, I was like, oh, this movie's so fun. And, I didn't have any concept of who Michael Jordan was or anything, or, I didn't even care for basketball, but the Looney Tunes were doing cool stuff. And so, as a kid, you're totally in. And then, as most people probably our age, as I grew up, I just kind of forgot about it, or hey,
Right,
that was a cool
right.
relic of the past. And,
Yeah, it kind of became just a joke, a meme, I
Right.
guess. Like the whole thing with, hey, that website, the Space Jam website, still up and running from 1996, looking as just amazingly awful as all websites did back then. But yeah, so one of the things that we wanted to do when we, broached this new movie was we wanted to compare and contrast. So we spun up the original movie, and I know for me personally, I was actually really surprised by how much I enjoyed it. It's it's not great, it's nothing earth shattering, but the first thing I noticed was, what, Michael Jordan's kind of a good actor.
Yeah,
And
surprisingly.
I was really surprised by that. He took a lot of digs on the chin about his baseball career, which I appreciated. But overall, just a really enjoyable movie that, frankly, other than some really poor green screening, holds up pretty well.
Yeah, I think the animation is still gorgeous. Like, I think the hand-drawn, like, Looney Tunes and stuff, and they all look really nice, and they interact surprisingly well with the real-life characters. I'll say that, watching this as a kid, you don't really understand how the movie kind of spans Michael Jordan's career and is about the end of his career, like you don't you don't really grasp that, but it's kind of about Michael Jordan's legacy in the first movie, and sort of like him coming full circle and playing baseball now, and like his career is kind of over. And I thought that was a really interesting, I wasn't expecting that, like the thing with his father, and of course like his father has passed away now, but he's like, he fulfilled his father's dream of playing basketball and now baseball and all that. Like it's surprisingly weirdly deep for a Looney Tunes film. And
It really is. So I really kind of wonder, I've got to do the research on this, but like where in the timeline, I doubt any of us know this, or at least not you and me, like where in the timeline of Michael Jordan's career did this movie come out in? Obviously it was post his baseball, experiment. Right. I think it's probably the best way you can call that thing. But like, was this like right as he was coming back into the NBA, or was it after all that, or had he already retired fully at this point? I just don't know. If it was actually right there in the middle, that's kind of a really interesting timeline for this thing to come out, especially considering how self-aware he would have to be. To really just dig into his failures as a baseball player. So I need to look into that timeline, because that's really interesting.
It's surprisingly retrospective, and I think just touch upon a couple other little things. Danny DeVito is great as the villain, just the sleazy owner of Moron Mountain, which I really don't think would be said today in
probably not.
any context. Not. But just a pretty straightforward. The Looney Tunes don't want to get stuck on Moron Mountain, so they find Michael Jordan to win a basketball game. It's an hour, 18 minutes or something like that.
Not even an hour and a half, and just chef kiss.
I mean,
you love to see that stuff.
It's like a long Looney Tunes episode. That's really all you need. It's,
Danny DeVito is great. The standout for me is obviously going to be Bill Murray. I just think he's hilarious, and he has some really great kind of inside baseball, Hollywood humor going on. At one point, he's, but at the end when he comes to join the basketball game in the cartoon world, well, Bill Murray, how'd you get here? Oh, I know the producer. That type of stuff. It's just really, really clever stuff that I don't think kids would really, kind of latch onto.
No, not at all. And speaking of like a product of its time, I mean, and the new movie does this as well, but it's definitely a product of the 90s, right? Because you have Bill Murray, who's one of the biggest stars of the 80s and 90s, and then you also have Wayne Knight as Stan Pollock, the guy that played Newman. And I don't know if I've even seen him since the 90s, really. So,
well, yeah, I mean, you're not a big Seinfeld fan, although that was deep 90s.
No, I am not. I'm not like very familiar. I mean, I know he's on it. Everybody knows the cast of Seinfeld, but I'm not really familiar with the show. But yeah, I mean, huge 90s star. So it's definitely kids watching it today. I'm not even sure if kids today know the Looney Tunes anymore. I mean, do you think so?
They still make those. They still make those cartoons, because HBO, put out a whole new thing last year when they launched. So yes, they're still a thing, but I can't imagine that they're as big a deal to today's kids as they were to us. because they were omnipresent when I was a kid.
Right. Same here.
You know, like the cartoons were on all the time. Of course, if you go to a Six Flags amusement park, Astroworld or Fiesta Texas, they're the mascots there.
Right, they're like the you know, they're the Disney characters of, that park. You know, like they're everywhere.
So they were huge for us as a kid, and I grew up with just a great affection for those cartoons. So it's really gonna bum me out if the kids today don't even know who the damn Looney Tunes are. Come on.
I mean, yeah, I know they've had some new series throughout the years. I know HBO released a new series as well recently, and like, but you don't hear much buzz about them. And I mean, going back to when we were kids, also, I think that they might have been more popular than the Disney characters, or at least on par, because like there certainly weren't any Mickey Mouse shows that I was watching as a kid, but I could definitely watch the Looney Tunes, you know?
They were there. The Mickey Mouse, obviously there was Mickey Mouse Club and Mickey's, like the Ink and Paint Club, I think was a thing.
Right.
That showed cartoons. The Disney cartoons really had their heyday, though, the short cartoons anyway, in the 50s, 60s.
Right.
You know, when Walt was still, you know, with us. And I guess the height of the Looney Tunes was back then as well, with Chuck Jones and Tex Avery and all those animators. But the Looney Tunes just seemed to have just a more, you know, omnipresent focus in the 90s, I think.
I think
that is, and it's definitely flipped. I mean, Disney is unquestionably back on top.
Yeah, I mean, Disney's just absolutely taken over. I mean, I'm sure kids are much more familiar with Mickey Mouse, even just by going to the Disney theme parks or watching the ridiculous amount of, you know, Disney Plus movies or shows that are taking over. You know, like I think the Looney Tunes have become somewhat of a footnote, which may be why this movie took over 20 years to get made. You know?
Maybe. Well, I think you had to wait for somebody in the basketball world as iconic as Michael Jordan was, and people ever since LeBron James broke onto the scene, you know, in the mainstream zeitgeist. I can remember 10 years ago people saying, "Oh, he's going to be in the new Space Jam."
Interesting.
And it finally happened. So I guess they just really had to wait for all the stars to align. I do want to mention, though, before we kind of leave the 90s behind, there was one particular thing about this movie that really did not hold up in a good way at all, which is right off the top. First thing you hear in the movie is an R. Kelly song. And oof, just ugh.
Man,
like I immediately just put my head, you know, palm, hand, forehead, whatever you call that thing, and just that does not age well.
God, I didn't. Yeah, you're right. I mean, it is quintessential '90s though, and R. Kelly too is also you know, just big in the '90s. It's a product of its time. So, speaking of product of its time, let's talk about Space Jam: A New Legacy, which is undoubtedly probably a product of its time, where time will definitely tell on this movie. My God.
Yeah.
So where do we even begin, Kevin? You were talking about LeBron James and how LeBron had to come along and sort of, you know, be the star of this movie, someone that could be, you know, equal to Michael Jordan, which we get a few jokes in the movie which are pretty funny about how, you know, maybe it's debatable that LeBron is equal to Michael Jordan. And I guess we'll start out comparing the two, because you said it earlier. You were kind of surprised by how good that Michael Jordan is. I was not surprised at all by how bad LeBron James is in this movie.
No. Neither was I. It was, at times, just painful, like cringe.
Yeah.
Like just that secondhand embarrassment of watching somebody who has no aptitude for this whatsoever trying to act. And you know, you go back and watch Jordan in the first one, there's just a natural charisma to him. And that's just probably him as a person.
Right.
You know, where he's just a very charismatic, outgoing person, whereas everything I've ever seen of LeBron James, again, I don't follow basketball, I really don't know anything about the guy except just his, you know, the perception that I see of his personality on display is kind of a closed off dick.
Yeah.
And that is what really came across on screen, just in his performance, was somebody who, I don't really want to be here. I'm just here for the paycheck and to get my image on the cereal box or whatever. And so it was not entertaining to watch.
You know, LeBron, I think he would have, I don't think his acting would have been any better, but I think a few years prior, maybe 5 years prior to this, it would have been a little bit better time, because he was a little bit more well-liked in the public space a few years ago. Like and you know, I don't really want to get into the entire controversy of LeBron James, but he's done some very good things for people and very good things for his community, and specifically people he cares about. Maybe not so much people he doesn't care about, but he's done some good things. Especially he's thrown his money around and he's done some good things. And
undeniable.
He had a much better public perception a few years prior. And he's kind of had some missteps. He's kind of had he had the whole China thing recently, which was really bad. And he's kind of just fallen from the public, I guess, grace, you would say. And I think more so now people speak negatively of him. I think he still has a lot of hardcore fans and a lot of supporters. But yeah, he's just not. It comes across in his acting and in real life. He doesn't have the wholesomeness of Michael Jordan, even though Michael Jordan not without his own scandals as well. But just in the movie, I think Michael trumps him big time. He cannot. He can't keep up. He can't keep up with the Looney Tunes. He can't keep up with the script. I will say I 100% did appreciate the fact that, like Michael Jordan before him, they could make fun of his career and he could roll with the punches. And there were
he made millions of dollars to take those insults on the chin, so I mean, I'm sure he's doing fine. But yes, to his credit. Now I do question how much of that had to get massaged in the script. Like, were they really acerbic in the first draft and they had to be toned down, or else he wasn't going to play ball? I don't know. I just have to question those things. You really got to wonder.
Yeah, and I mean, I thought Don Cheadle was pretty ruthless with some of them. I really liked it. I don't know how much improvisation that was from Cheadle or not, but it was pretty funny. So Space Jam: A New Legacy is basically Don Cheadle's character is this AI algorithm created by Warner Brothers, right? And he controls the Serververse, which is all of the Warner Brothers properties, and already that's pretty cringy and horrible. But he controls all the Warner Brothers properties, and for some reason the algorithm or algorithm it comes up with this plan to get LeBron to star in all of the WB properties, put him in Harry Potter, or you have the bad joke about LeBron in the Chamber of Secrets, and just, all that, in inserting him into each Warner Brothers property. Now, like I said, maybe 5 years ago that would have been relevant. I don't see, and they even make fun of it in the movie, which I appreciated. They get LeBron into the meeting room, and even LeBron himself is like, this is a horrible idea. This is stupid. Yeah. Like, I don't understand. I don't understand the impetus for that idea at all. But
well, here's one of my big glaring issues with this movie, is just how big the Warner Brothers circle jerk is. That's really what this is. This is an hour and a half, hour 45 maybe, of Warner Brothers desperately patting itself on the back, hoping that you, the audience, will remember, hey, we made this really cool thing that you liked once upon a time, please give us your money. And I find it really funny, interesting, sad maybe, that the villain of the story, Don Cheadle's algorithm, because come on, with that name, the movie itself is guilty of the exact same thing the villain is wanting to do.
Exactly, yeah.
which is insert LeBron James into all of these Warner Brothers properties, and we're going to call out how terrible of an idea this is, except the movie that we're watching is doing the exact same fucking thing.
Yeah. And
that's just crazy.
I don't know if that was maybe the writers, like, we got to write a new Space Jam movie, but maybe we'll, in a meta way, in a fourth wall breaking way, we'll point out how bad of an idea this script is.
I think you're giving them far too much credit.
Maybe I am.
I do not think there was any self-awareness there whatsoever.
If there wasn't any self-awareness, that's very sad, because they literally did the thing that they said was a stupid idea right off the bat. So within this mix of Warner Brothers properties is the very unused Looney Tunes, right?
Yeah.
And so, LeBron is having issues at home with his family and with his son in particular. I somewhat liked this story with the son not wanting to be a basketball player. I think it goes off rails pretty quick, but
it's a good idea.
It's a good idea on paper that LeBron's son doesn't want to be pushed as hard as he was as a kid. He doesn't want to have to be forced to play basketball just because his dad plays basketball. He wants to like go and forge his own path and build video games and do like technological stuff and stuff. And you have LeBron having some decent cringy dad moments, but he doesn't connect with the kid. Obviously, it's not his real kid; it's an actor, and you can tell he doesn't.
Yeah.
He has no chemistry with him. It's just kind of. Yeah, I mean the script leaves a lot for LeBron to do, and he can't do it. But
He just can't handle it. Yeah.
I mean, I think that the Looney Tunes here are somewhat of an afterthought in their own movie, which is really unfortunate. But this is where our kind of paths are going to diverge, Kevin.
Okay.
So you and Nick both, and I'm sure in Nick's statement that he pre-recorded earlier, talk about the giant circle jerk of this movie. I honestly came in with just rock bottom expectations, and I thought that they held back on the circle jerk more than I expected.
Really?
Yeah, because at the heart of this movie, I still think you spend more time with the Looney Tunes, and I still think that the basketball game at the end is way too long, but I still think that the crux of the movie is about the Looney Tunes. And I was surprised because, like, obviously LeBron has to save his son from Algae Rhythm, who is sort of creepily grooming him. And so he's got to, build a basketball team out of Warner Brothers properties, and he's going around and Bugs Bunny tricks him into recruiting all the Looney Tunes instead of, Superman or King Kong or any of the big properties that would actually help him in the game. But I think that despite how bad they were not long segments. All of the different Warner Brothers lands, like, he goes to find Wile E. Coyote, who's hilariously in the Mad Max universe for whatever reason. And, the segment is maybe just like a minute or two long. I honestly thought we were going to spend 10 minutes plus in these Warner Brothers properties. And
well, small blessings. I will agree those were hit and miss. My bigger complaint as the movie as a quote unquote circle jerk as a whole is just that even after all of those scenes where you're going and visiting each individual world, is those stupid ass cosplayers in the background of every single shot is just constantly pulling focus with their just shitty costumes, and to me it just took me out of the movie. Every single shot that I'm supposed to be focusing on Don Cheadle leading all the scenery. I'm supposed to be focusing on LeBron James doing this and that. No, my focus was constantly pulled away because, hey, there's King Kong in the background, or hey, there's this cool, WB property from 50 years ago that nobody gives a shit about anymore, but maybe you do, and give us your money. And to me, it just completely took me out of the movie every step of the way. I will agree that when this movie remembers to be a Looney Tunes movie, it's fine. It's a shame that even when the Looney Tunes are there, huge swaths of it are still just wasting those characters in their shtick. It's really not until the last 10, 15 minutes of the movie that, oh yeah, that's right, we just remembered we were a Looney Tunes movie first. Let's dig into that.
Yeah, and it's, I was talking to you guys in the chat before I saw it, and I was like, what's wrong with just making a good Looney Tunes movie? I think stuff like this actually hurts the Looney Tunes name more than helps it, because it's not really about them. It tries, and to its credit, it did surprise me. I was really surprised that they didn't have more WB stuff happening, but yeah, it just doesn't help that the Looney Tunes are second fiddle in their own film, and it's kind of sad because the first movie is kind of a celebration. Like Space Jam 1 is kind of a celebration of where they were and where they come from, and it has a lot of their history and a lot of their old cartoons in the film, and kind of focuses on each character. In this movie, they bring Lola Bunny back, and of course, the big controversy is that she doesn't have boobs anymore, but nobody cares about that. But
well, by the way, going back and watching Lola Bunny in the first one, it is cringe-inducingly over-sexualized,
cringy, horrible.
Yeah. So, good decision, WB, for toning that down.
Yes.
And making her a character with actual, motivations beyond just, hey, look how hot I look.
But, as far as I know, Lola Bunny was created for the Space Jam movies, right?
Correct.
The first one. And you kind of would expect her to have a bigger role in this one, and she doesn't do anything again. And I'm like, well, I'm glad that they changed her character and tried to give her more of a presence and voice, but she doesn't have any sort of arc in the final basketball game, you know? Like, she doesn't win the game for them or help, or, like, she's kind of just there. And it's kind of unfortunate that all of the Looney Tunes are just there. I still found the movie to be decently funny. You know, I really, really enjoyed Don Cheadle. I think he's probably the best part about the film.
He was just going for it. I mean, just
absolutely,
100%,
yeah,
100% committed.
I think that's kind of,
and I do appreciate that.
I think it's kind of the thing you get when you get a multiple Emmy-nominated, you know, Oscar-nominated actor to be in this just god-awful, just pathetic movie. But he was really going for it. I thought most of his jokes landed. I thought that he surprisingly didn't overact, even though he was chewing scenery big time. He's definitely the funniest part of the film. As far as, you know, all of the other characters drawing focus from him, I didn't really mind it too much. I know that you and Nick absolutely hated this, but I just thought it was kind of funny by how awful it was. Like, you have like the 1996 Batman Penguin waddling around behind him. It totally pulls focus from him. Like, every single one of those awkward cosplayers.
And that's really the thing. I think if they would have gone the extra mile and actually, you know, the shit you can do with CGI in 2021, if they would have actually made those characters the actual, you know, characters, like if you have Mr. Freeze in there from Batman and Robin, it's Batman and Robin, right?
Right.
With Arnold Schwarzenegger, then make the CGI look like Arnold Schwarzenegger instead of just a guy with blue paint,
right,
on his face. Really, that I think is what bothered me more than anything. And yes, it would have cost him a little extra money, but it would have just made it so much better. Because every single time one of those Comic-Con rejects waddles across the screen, I just can't help but laugh, and not in a good way.
I just thought it was funny, even not in a good way. I just thought it was hilarious. It was just so egregiously bad. And speaking of that, you know, Space Jam 1, the main villains are the Monstars, right? They steal a bunch of popular basketball players' powers, and their animation surprisingly still looks really cool today. They're really fun.
Classic hand-drawn animation.
Yeah, classic hand-drawn, you know, cool-looking weird aliens. You know, they're a lot of fun. And then you get to this movie, and the CGI on the Goon Squad, which is the new bad guys, is... I think it's one of the worst things I've seen in a modern film.
Well, not just on the bad guys, but I was really bummed when they turned the Looney Tunes into 3D CGI. Because I'm sure it was CGI to do the 2D as well, probably.
Right.
But to me, it just loses some of its charm and its magic when you turn those characters into just these CGI abominations.
They were not the same at all. And, you know, no. I think you're right. Like, it probably was some sort of like CGI or computer, you know, to make them their 2D selves. Yeah. But the 2D animation, even if you create it with a computer, just looks so much nicer on the Looney Tunes. And like, I think they lost a lot of their personality. And you can definitely say that, you know, oh well, you know, the bad guy does it to them, right? So obviously they're gonna look bad. But it's I don't know. Bugs Bunny looks straight up evil, you know, in 3D animation. Like, he didn't look right. He didn't look sweet anymore. Like, I don't know. It just there's a lot of bad decisions in the film, especially regarding the Looney Tunes, who are the main characters in general. But I guess I'll say, like, if we're gonna look at this movie not from a film critic standpoint and from maybe a general audience and maybe like a children's standpoint, I think children are still not. Like, this is still going to go over a lot of their heads, you know, like a lot of these references and things. Like,
yeah, and that just really comes down to, you know, who is this movie for, really? Because you can say, oh, it's a kids movie, so let's cut it some slack. But so much of those classic WB touch points are just, they're not going to understand. A kid's not going to know what Mad Max Fury Road is. They're certainly not going to know what Casablanca is.
I mean, they have the It Clown, like they...
Yeah. So obviously the goal, I think, from the filmmakers is, okay, we're not really making this for the kids. We're making this for the 90s kids who have grown up now and grew up with all these film references, and they're gonna ignore what's going on in the foreground because, oh, look at that thing in the background. I recognize that. Give me your money. And that's just gross. That is just cynical and gross. And I hate that that's the way that, you know, big budget filmmaking in this day and age has become. And let me preface, you know, tag onto that by saying I am fully self-aware of how hypocritical I just was, considering my stance on the MCU. So I'm aware of that. But
That's
still,
funny.
this one felt a cut above what Disney and Marvel is doing as far as just the cynicism.
Yeah, it definitely was. I'll say it's even further than anything Disney has done lately. But I think that's kind of sad because I was watching it and I was like, oh, well, maybe I can excuse a little bit of it because it's a children's movie. But yeah, you're absolutely right. It's not a children's movie, unfortunately. I think hopefully kids will like it. Hopefully they'll still find it fun. It's got a lot of ridiculousness. Hopefully they can find the Looney Tunes endearing like we did when we were kids. But
yeah,
one of the most egregious points of the film to me was whenever Rick and Morty come in. And I'm like, this is one of the most adult properties that you could possibly have. Like, there are no children that should be watching, like, Rick and Morty. And they especially should not be mixing with the Looney Tunes. And I was just like, this is definitely for grown-ups. It doesn't make any sense otherwise,
Yeah, well, I mean, I think we talked about this the last time when the trailer came out and we talked about it. Was it in that crowd? There are the Droogs from Clockwork Orange. And, I mean, you cannot get a more adult film than A Clockwork Orange. Me, as a 37-year-old adult, I still have a hard time watching that movie because it is so goddamn intense. And so there's, again, the idea to put that in a movie ostensibly for kids is just mind-boggling to me.
It's kind of a shame because I've secretly been waiting for this movie for a while because I just remember having such fond memories of the first Space Jam and I really love the Looney Tunes. I think they're just hilarious. I think that you can still watch those old cartoons today and be like, oh man, these jokes are just land. Bugs is funny, man. Like, I love when Bugs is constantly like cross-dressing, kissing people. Like, I love his whole shtick. I think he's hilarious. Daffy as well. Like, they just have so many good episodes in the Looney Tunes.
Yeah.
And the humor still holds up today. And then, I think fondly back on Space Jam, and I'm like, oh man, it would be great to see the Looney Tunes do something again. And I waited so long, 20-something years, and they just went for absolutely the wrong crowd. It's like you said, this is made for 30-somethings, and it's not appropriate. Like, it's not going to endear kids to the Looney Tunes like they want it to. I don't think it is anyway. And so I think it totally misses the mark. Where I will diverge again from you guys is I didn't have a horrible time watching it. I laughed. I really thought it was so... I thought it was so bad that it was funny. I really loved Don Cheadle eating the scenery. I thought he was hilarious. The one joke that you really loved, I really loved as well, is whenever they're looking for Michael Jordan and Michael B. Jordan walks in.
Yeah, that was pretty great.
I thought that was a really great piece of writing.
I'll give that one to them. And so there were three jokes I liked. There was the Michael Jordan one, which that is a touch of genius. Well done. There's the Wile E. Coyote and the Mad Max stuff. The Witness Me, and he spray paints his teeth with the silver. Again, movie for 9-year-olds.
No, I don't
right?
get it. Yeah,
they'll totally understand that. But then I think my favorite bit of the movie that I wish they would have dug into more was when LeBron first goes to Toon World, and Bugs is isolated for years and years and has completely gone crazy. And is trying to recreate his old cartoons. I wish they would have dug into that more because there's such a wonderful darkness to that.
There really is.
The whole, trying to get LeBron to do the duck season, rabbit season gag or the Barber of Seville haircut scene. I really wanted more of that. But again, if you don't know those cartoons, you're not going to get any of those references.
Yeah,
so
kids are going to have no idea what's wrong with Bugs
Kids are
Bunny.
not going to know. Yeah.
They think he's just a creepy weirdo, I do agree with you and Nick, but I didn't have a horrible time with it. So I think overall, This movie just is mistimed. It's misplaced. It's going to be a product of its time. All of these horrible references are going to age it very, very poorly.
Oh, in 3 years, nobody will ever be talking about this movie again.
No, and I'm wondering if maybe in another 20 years, who knows? I mean, if this movie does well, WB might just greenlight a whole bunch of Space Jams with all kinds of different stuff. Who knows? But in another 20 years, Kevin, do you think we'll see another Space Jam? Do you think it's going to continue?
I mean, can we blame it on climate change and just call it, an awful thing? No, it's not going to happen. I don't think so. But what I do hope happens is that WB will just get their heads out of their ass and realize that, hey, we have such a wonderful IP in these old Looney Tunes characters, and let's do them justice. Let's give them their own property, whether it's a movie, whether it's a TV show. Hell, make it the Tiny Toons again. I loved the Tiny Toons.
Yeah.
But give them their due, because there's such a rich history here that it is a damn shame that this is what they've been reduced to.
It really is. I really wish that they could work out some sort of deal with like the Universal theme parks, because I know that they're in the Six Flags, but Six Flags popularity is kind of waning. And I really wish that maybe the Looney Tunes could get it up in Universal and just like I'd like them to have a little more prominence than to equal some of the Disney characters like they used to back in the day. I don't see that happening, especially after this movie. Oh God, it just really did them dirty. I appreciated what was there. Like you said, I appreciated a lot of the Bugs jokes, and Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote were great, but...
Yeah. There's that 10-minute sequence after the halftime of the game where they realize, in order to win this, we're going to have to be ourselves.
Right.
That is where the movie finally shines.
Exactly.
When it's the Looney Tunes being the Looney Tunes. What a wasted opportunity to only relegate that to 10 minutes of the movie.
Not when Porky Pig is doing a horrible rap session. That's just awful. Awful.
Yeah.
All right, Kevin. Final thoughts on Space Jam: A New Legacy. I'll go first. Unlike my two co-hosts, I didn't hate it. I had a good time. It's funny for what's there. I was surprised that they didn't go even further into the awful meta circle jerkiness. But at the end of the day, this is not a good movie. It's like we said, it's a movie for 30-somethings, and it completely misses the mark. It's not for kids either. The script just lets it down, and they've let the Looney Tunes down. I really was hoping I could come on and be a lot more positive about Space Jam. I think that nostalgia will probably carry this. I think a lot of people are also going to explain it away as being a movie for kids, and that I think it's going to do well. I think that maybe even if it does good enough, WB is going to greenlight more of them, and then God knows what the story will be. Maybe we will see Daniel Radcliffe as Harry Potter as the main character or something. Who knows? But
maybe.
Yeah, I didn't think it was awful. I'd give it a solid 6. I did have some good laughs, but at the end of the day, the movie doesn't make sense, and LeBron is just absolutely terrible in it. So, what do you think, Kevin?
So here's what you do. You go to the kitchen and you go to you go get your heaviest bottomed skillet that you can find, and you smash yourself in the face with it, and that will be more entertaining than watching this movie. I think you'll have a better time. Specifically, this does not work as a kids movie. This does not work as a nostalgia trip for the adults. This is just about a failure on every single level, except for Don Cheadle. I'll give it to Don Cheadle. Well done. If you just have to watch a Space Jam movie, watch the original. It's available on Hulu and HBO Max. You'll love it. The kids will love it. Awful. Bad job. Bad job, WB. I know you're trying. I know you want that Disney money. The Sir reverse isn't happening, man. It's not like the MCU. It's not the same thing. Oh, God. Not the same.
Oh, God. All right. Well, we've got some pretty cool stuff coming up, Kevin, as far as movies go.
We do.
I'm not sure if we slated it for next week or not, but one of the things that is really interesting is Old from M. Night Shyamalan.
We definitely want to do that, and we had talked about the idea. I think it was our superfan Martha had the idea to give which one was it? The second
Lady in
chance?
the
It was Lady in the Water. I think that'd be a fun little podcast. Now that does mean that we have to watch Lady in the Water again.
Martha, come on.
Do it for the fans.
We'll
Kev.
do it for the fans, and maybe it'll be good. I don't remember it. I
Maybe.
haven't seen it since it's been in theaters, so.
Same. I just remember hating it.
Yeah, I know we have a lot of cool stuff coming up, though. A lot of good stuff to talk about.
We've got the Green Knight coming up soon.
Yeah, Green Knight's going to be awesome. I mean, if you guys haven't seen the preview for that, check it out. That show looks amazing. Cannot wait. But yeah, we're finally getting into a pretty decent movie season, man. Getting towards the middle and end of the year, so a lot of the good stuff is coming out. I'm excited. Maybe at some point we'll get around to talking about Black Widow, which was a much worse movie than this movie in almost every way.
I mean, Kevin, Go lay down, take your pill. I don't know what is wrong with you to think that Space Jam is better than Black Widow. Come on.
Porky Pig rap scene better than anything you'll see. We are the Lords of the Screen podcast. We're on all the podcast places: Google, Spotify, Apple. We're everywhere. Come on and join us. Be a part of the fellowship. We really appreciate you all of you that listen and go on YouTube and watch us. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for joining us. Why did I say that twice? I don't know. Thanks for joining us.